Welcome to WholeCEO with Lisa G. I'm the best-selling author of The Boss Weight Loss. I'm bringing you the top tips to be unstoppable. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to actually pull up a chair with today's top experts in mindset, weight loss, business, and more. Learn our top tips so that you can have more energy, be fit and resilient, feel unstoppable, unshakable, and unbreakable. He's the CEO of Anahat Education Group, the executive director of the Institute of Interpersonal Hypnotherapy, and the president at International Association of Interpersonal Hypnotherapists. The first state licensed post-secondary vocational hypnotherapy institute through the U.S. Department of Education's Commission for Independent Education, and the founder of Silent Light Publishers and Interpersonal NLP Society, Matthew J. Brownstein. Welcome to the podcast.
Nice, Lisa. Thank you. I know that was all a mouthful, so good job there.
I was impressed that I got all that out.
Me too.
Well, welcome. This is so exciting. I know that there's so many of us that are having anxious feelings these days with all the uncertainty, and we discuss this a little bit off camera. So I'd like to dive deeper into a few topics around that. But first, why do we need to stay on our path and know our mission and tap into our higher consciousness?
All right. Yeah, good question. And we can even blend it in with the anxious feelings theme.
Okay, good.
So I think a lot of people are waking up to the idea, and you have it on your shelf there. There's really only two emotions. There's fear and there's love. Or there's ego and spirit. There's your false self, which makes you neurotic. And there's your true self, which is essentially always at peace, right? So all those good words behind you, love, faith, dream, hope, those are all words that really come from, you might say, spirit, or from a space of love. And then there's a place of fear. So why would we want to stay on our true path, be connected to who we truly are? Because our true self is love. Our true self is joy. Our true self really is at peace. And we talked about there's so many people suffering now, but really there's one problem, which is being caught up in your ego, being in a space of fear. And there's one solution, which is just returning to that sense of oneness, to that space of love. When we do, we are on our path. We're being true to who we are. So anybody who's a Course in Miracles student will know that I'm really speaking Course in Miracles type philosophy, where there's one problem and one solution. The problem is you feel separate from source, separate from who you are, separate from your path. You're in a space of fear and ego. And there's one solution, a simple shift. It really is just one mental shift that leads us back to love and truth and who we really, really are.
Well, thanks, Matthew. Okay, so let's dive into it a little bit, because I woke up this morning with some anxious feelings, and I could trace them back to the root of why I was feeling that way. But I know it goes so much deeper than that. With all the uncertainty that we've all been through in the last 2.5 years, I'd say it feels somewhat traumatic. So what would be the source to start feeling a little bit better when you're feeling those anxious feelings?
Yeah, the first thing I've learned in my personal life journey with anxiety is acceptance, is stop resisting it. Life is challenging, right? We have emotions, right? We go through COVID or a loss of a job or loss of a loved one. You're going to feel feelings. We get anxious when we try not to feel those feelings, right? So trying to close our heart, trying to suppress. And I say trying because you can never truly do it, but trying to not feel bad is the best way to feel bad, right? So I've learned that anxiety is essentially a pushing down of emotion. And the anxious feeling is, I don't want to feel what's in there. The best thing we can do is just start saying, I'm scared, right? We just went through a pandemic, right? We're experiencing war again on this planet. There's a talk of recession and all that. Like, are you scared? Yeah, okay, then be scared. Like, my experience is when you can just allow for the fear to be there as an authentic, real human emotion, you're not really anxious anymore. Like, if you feel sad, feel sad. And when the raw human emotions can be there, when the inner child is free to be him or herself, then we're not anxious anymore. So yeah, it's about being open. It's about being vulnerable. And the first step towards not feeling anxious is realize you have deeper self-esteem issues, deeper belief systems, deeper emotions that need to be addressed. Is if all we do is get a diagnosis that you have anxiety, then you say, oh, I have this thing, and therefore I need this medication. Maybe you're a human being with real feelings and you just haven't learned to deal with those yet. And, I'm sure you've been around the block, I'm sure, in personal growth stuff. We all have our tools, but we sometimes miss the most basic teaching, which is it's okay to feel your feelings.
So step one is acknowledge your feelings and let yourself know it's okay to feel these feelings. Probably anybody would feel a similar way under these circumstances. And then when you want to tap into your higher consciousness and sort of dispel some of those unworthy feelings or limiting self-beliefs, what is the next step once you acknowledge these feelings of being anxious?
Yeah, well, if we're talking higher consciousness, since you are, and you asked me that, the higher consciousness, like what does that mean, right? It's a valuable idea, but if it's abstract, then it really doesn't mean anything. If it's somebody who's, I don't know, your higher self, your spirit guides floating around in the clouds, well, what does that really do? But what I would mean by higher consciousness is that you're aware that you're aware right now, right? You are conscious. And the seat of that consciousness kind of feels like it's like back here, right? If you really say, like, where am I? Like there's a you looking through your eyeballs right now.
Right.
That you is not your body, that you is not your emotions, and that you is not even your thinking mind. Because if your mind was quiet right now, like if you didn't have, you're just listening. So if you didn't have a single thought, you're still there. To me, that's your higher consciousness. Then we could say the lower self, and it's not pejorative, it's just like you're kind of up here and something's below you, because we say conscious and subconscious. So beyond even your conscious mind is you as the observer. So the next step, if you're willing to accept that there's a lower self that's neurotic, right, that has all those feelings.
I'm willing to accept that. Yeah.
Sure. So there's a higher self, which is your very own consciousness, which is actually not neurotic. It's always at peace. So one of my books is called Peace Under All Circumstances. But the circumstances include your body, mind, and emotions. But when you learn to observe body, mind, and emotions, then you're accepting that, okay, there's a human being down there who feels anxious or scared, but I'm the observer of that. Being the observer of your feelings is another huge step towards dealing with them. So yeah, we could say, if we're mapping it out this way, step one, let your lower self, your emotional self, let him or her be as that person is. So accept it. Step two, learn how to observe it. And that's really where we get into meditation teachings, to get more established in what you might call the seat of your soul, or the seat of witness consciousness. So when we can observe the human self, we are much more free to allow it to be as it is. And then we can really start to work on, well, what do we do with that lower self? But a major step is the ability to just observe it from that higher space.
And what about breathing? Do you then, once you've acknowledged how you're feeling and witnessed it, and you want to just feel a little bit better, do you do anything with breathing? Because I find that helps me. I find sometimes if I'm in fear or feeling anxious, that I'm not really breathing.
Yes. So when we suppress our emotions, which is when we're resisting them, we tend to do two things. We stop our breathing and we tense our bodies, right? I don't want to feel this. And then we do tend to try to dissociate from our negative feelings in some way. But when we learn to just observe our feelings, not dissociate, but just be mindful, be conscious, observe. Then when we don't suppress, we also need to learn, don't act out on those feelings. Don't let them run your life. The thing you do is relax your body, keep breathing, and just feel. So it's a revolutionary concept that feelings are meant to be felt, right? We're always trying to make
you're not
feelings
supposed to like drink your way out of them, shop your way out of them, and numb your way out of them with food or TV. Just feel them.
I mean, it's an option, but does it get rid of those, does it get rid of those negative feelings? Right. So the real goal is, if you think about it, if I suppress my emotions, do they go away? No. If I act out on my emotions and do what they want to do they go away? No. So the best option I found is sit still, relax your body, keep breathing, and just feel. Now, you might say, yeah, but I got to get to work or something. that's where we start getting some disciplined meditation practice in there. I know people don't like the word discipline, but make yourself sit still for 5 minutes every morning and then sit still for 5 minutes every evening. Just develop that habit of learning to just sit with feelings. The more we sit and just breathe and observe, things tend to just settle down on their own. And when we're really in something that's intense, if we learn that mechanism, the intense feeling when it's not suppressed and we don't act out on it, burns itself away. And you can sit through those waves of discomfort. And I know it's not a common practice, but that's why we need to talk about things like this, right? Just sit, breathe, feel. Eventually, the emotion will clear. And if you really sat through it, it tends to burn away for good, meaning you're just less anxious, less scared, less angry continually. But if we suppress it or act out on it, we never really get rid of those negative feelings.
This is so helpful. I find that just acknowledging your feelings, sitting with them, and then meditation for me through the last couple of years has really been a life changer. I love to listen to guided meditations. What kind of meditation are you suggesting?
Yeah, there's many, and I teach certain types, but if we're going to just be real general, this meditation I suggest is just sit still. I'm on a lot of podcasts, and I just find myself wanting to say to human beings, especially like Americans, just do whatever you do, just do it. So sitting still with a straight spine and just breathing is really a first foundational step. A big part of my background is Zen meditation. And in Zen practice, we really emphasize just sitting. It doesn't have to be that fancy. But then once you're sitting, you practice observing your breath. Again, super easy. Just sit and watch your breath. People want really deep techniques, but the truth is most people don't do the basics, right? To have a disciplined morning and evening meditation practice. So once you get that 5 minutes of doing whatever you do internally, just sitting still, watching your breath, watching your emotions, really you're learning to be the observer. But if you need something to do with your mind, because people say, I can't meditate, I can't stop my mind, then first of all, don't try to stop your mind, right? It's going to talk because that's what it does, but you can give it something to do. So in basic Zen practice, we would just count our breaths. So like inhale 1, exhale 2. Inhale 3, exhale 4. Do that up to 10. When you get to 10, start again at 1. So I love the really basic teachings. I've been meditating now for 30 years, and I still will, like, there's one of my meditation cushions behind me. I'll just get on that cushion. I will sit in some form of like lotus posture, but it doesn't really matter. You can sit in a chair with a straight spine. Breathe, count your breaths, and just that's really all you have to do. Everything else tends to happen by itself. When we get too complex, too fancy, we start mistaking the practice. Like we think there's some goal, but in Zen, the goal is the practice. The goal is the journey. The goal is the present moment. So all you have to do is sit and be with yourself. And just that process alone is remarkable. In the deepest states of Zen meditation, it's called shikantaza, which means just sitting. Not
Right.
that fancy, but how many people just sit? Even when you're just sitting, you're worrying about how you're going to pay your taxes and you're worrying about what you're going to say to this person. And you can just sit and watch that neurotic mind. They call it the monkey mind. And you're not
I
trying to
have
stop
one. I definitely have
it.
one.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
mean, I'm from New York and I just sort of roll that way, but this
Mhm.
is super helpful. And are there any other tips or steps you could recommend to our audience about how to just sit with our emotions, witness our feelings, be with our feelings and meditate and just to feel 1% better? Any other steps?
Yeah, there's a technique we teach in our hypnotherapy school called focusing. It's not what it sounds like. It's not like concentration. There's a book or you can get YouTube videos on or whatnot by Dr. Eugene Genlin. So focusing is about finding the body felt sense. So when you just sit down, you're going to sit still and you're going to observe and say, okay, what's going on, right? We talk about a higher observing consciousness. We might say we have the lower self, the inner child, but whenever that's upset, whenever that's not feeling okay, the body will respond to that, right? So the felt sense is usually below the chin or certainly below the shoulders and above the waist. And just ask yourself, how do I feel? Not just how do I feel emotionally, how do I feel physically? So you might notice heaviness in your heart, heart pounding, something usually in the heart or the solar plexus. When you observe the physical felt sense, you can find the associated emotion. It's like, all right, my heart feels really heavy. And then just finish the sentence. Yeah, because I feel so. And then you'll find the emotion sad, right? So get in touch with it, being able to label it. Oh, my heart feels heavy. I feel sad. Or my stomach's in knots. I feel angry. Once you are aware of that, you can learn techniques to make mental shifts to clear the fear, the anger, or whatever the emotion is. But the important theme in Dr. Genlin's technique is the body felt sense shift. So you'll know you truly cleared your mental emotional block when the body feels better. You're not trying to make the body feel better because the body's only responding to the mind. But when you truly make a mental shift, you'll know it was a valid, long-term productive shift because the body shifts as well. So you might say, I'm going to stay in that meditation cushion until my belly or my heart feels better, but because I'm working through it on the mental level. But it can be challenging, yet that technique is, like another self-help type technique. Yeah, Dr. Glenlin's focusing technique can be really helpful to learn about the body in the way it's communicating to us and learning how to listen to what it's saying. So in that technique, there's an ask and receive model. You can say, okay, my stomach, I feel you're all upset. You seem angry and hurt. What's your story? What are you all about? And that's really essentially like the subconscious down there. But when we ask it, what are you all about? It will reveal stuff to our conscious mind. And then we're more empowered to know what we're working with. So there's an asking and receiving in that model as well, which is really valuable.
Well, this is like really helpful stuff. I really love the way just talking to you, I can almost just feel better having some tools of just sitting with my feelings, seeing where in my body I feel it, acknowledging them, and then realizing that that really does make me feel better.
Yeah, sure. Because what you're doing when you stop and you're being still is you're acknowledging what you appear and you are, like on the surface, an adult, right? Inside, inside.
Not so much. Yeah.
So we're right here. We're all adults, but inside there's an inner child, and we tend to forget that, especially men. We're like, oh, I don't have a sad little boy inside of me. Well, no, sometimes I do. Sometimes I'm aware of that. To be willing to say, yeah, there's a scared part, there's a hurt part, there's an angry part. To stop and be with that inner child and just to say, how do you feel? So you ask, like, what's your story? What all about? Oh, well, dad did this, mom did this, they did that. Okay, then learn to ask this question. So once you say, like, what's your story? What are you all about? Say, what do you need to feel better? Because imagine if you have a child, your child comes into the bedroom at night and is like, mommy, help. There's monsters in my bedroom. And you say, shut up and get back in there. That's suppression, right? That's the wrong thing to do. But also, if you buy into their illusion and you say, oh, yeah, there are monsters or ghosts in your room, and we better get guns and we better call the military. Well, now we're just feeding on a total fictitious illusion. So if we say, well, what's your story? What are you all about? Well, I think there's ghosts in the room. There's monsters in the room. What do you need to feel better? And then receive the answer for that. Once you get
what if you just need a hug?
Yeah, so it's all mental, right? Because you're talking to a mental inner child, right? We're talking about like, your inner self there. Because it's mental, it doesn't know fact from fiction. The subconscious doesn't know fact from fiction. If it asks for a hug, imagine giving it a hug. Like you as the adult go and hug that child. It's usually the first thing you need to do, right? Your child comes in and says,
I think would just make it 1% better.
A lot better, actually. I would say like 50% of it, like we said, accepting your anxious feelings can make it 50% better because you stop resisting it. Like what we resist persists. But if you give that child a big hug, like a real child, a human physical child, they're going to soften a lot and feel like, oh, somebody's there for me. But then ask again, and what would feel even better? This is a process we teach in neurolinguistic programming and hypnotherapy called core transformation. And essentially, there's more to it, but the basic question in this process is, what would feel better? And what would feel better? And then what would feel better? Just keep doing it. And what happens is the inner child tends to say, I need things. Like I need a hug. I need a bicycle. I need some food. Just imagine giving him or her, whatever the child asks for. Eventually, you can say, now how do you feel? better. You can say, what feeling would feel even better? So don't ask for things anymore. Start focusing on feelings, right? Well, maybe confidence would feel better. Maybe faith would feel better. Maybe hope would feel better, right? So we can ask, like, what do you need? But kind of pace that child from things to feelings. Eventually, we get to states of being where you say, well, now, what is your being like? How are you now? Now I'm at peace. You want to, so a state of being is, I am love. I am peace. I am joy. I am bliss. You can pace that child, that inner child, to peace, love, joy, bliss, ecstasy, essentially, if you just keep doing that. I mean, you do have to get good at it and understand what's really going on here, but two super powerful techniques that can go beyond just sitting with your feelings: the focusing technique by Dr. Glenlin, and Connie Ray Andreas's core transformation technique. We use a lot in the field of hypnotherapy, or at least the way I teach it, because you can get in touch with what's going on in there, and then you're empowered just to say, what would feel better? Give it what it needs to feel better. It's not the end all of transformational work, but as far as self-help techniques or powerful metaphors for how we can work with ourselves, really valuable stuff.
Well, thank you, Matthew Brownstein. This is super powerful stuff. I hope you guys are getting something out of it as much as I am. Where can people find you?
So instituteofhypnotherapy.com is our main website for hypnotherapy training, and a lot of other resources. There's hundreds of hours of free resources on that website. And then another website with a lot of free resources is onlinemonastery.com. That's one of my other major projects. It's 100 hours of free meditation training that leads to a certification. If you go through, you can become a certified teacher of the system. So yeah, it's like 100 hours of free meditation training at onlinemonastery.com.
Thank you for being a wonderful guest.
Oh, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming to Whole CEO with Lisa G. After over 20 years helping people lose weight and get fit, I'm so excited to announce that I found the missing link with my coaching. Message me if you want to learn how to look better, feel better, and go faster with a master. Lisa G at lisagfit.com.